For my generation, I think for many people actually who watch the show, this particular gentleman, Ronald Reagan, was the ultimate president. I think he was probably the first one that I do remember. I do remember, and I literally met him years later, Jimmy Carter, who was also a nice man, but I remember he popped up on the news quite a bit. And it's funny, isn't it, how political sort of people stick in your mind. I think probably the very first British Prime Minister would be, for me, Jim Callaghan, because he seemed to pop up on the news a lot. Maybe you're just suddenly becoming more aware. But this particular man, Ronald Reagan, really appealed to me because he had that Hollywood glitz and glamour. I didn't realize that you could become the president of the United States all while being a Hollywood star at the same time. And when I looked into him, and remember, this is pre-internet, you kind of think, wow, what a life this man's had. Literally taken on the world by the scruff of its neck and climbed all the way there. Not a bad life. And he seemed such a nice man. Everybody that I've interviewed who worked with him as a professional actor said such wonderful things about him, how he was kind, generous, and more importantly, was a very good actor on screen, although he got derided at the time. I told you I was lucky enough to meet the actor Richard Todd, who co-starred with him in one of the very early British movies that Richard did. And he said he was just a wonderful guy. And they kept in touch right until, of course, he was still at the White House. Amazing to think, isn't it? So I really was happy to interview and meet the wonderful actor Dennis Quaid, who's now, as many people may know, put out a film all about Ronald Reagan and that particular era. And it got me thinking, and I'd love to know your thoughts. You see, I didn't really know that much about it because we just know what we remember. And this film really is something to see. They started working on it way back during the pandemic. Problems ensued, finance, that sort of stuff. And Dennis was very open about exactly the difficulties that he encountered to get it to the screen. But finally, they did get it to the screen. And he said, look, when he was in London, if you can help me promote it, please, feel free. He was a nice man. I liked him. I got on with him. I'm sure there's other sides to them. But at the time when you're interviewing them, you like them. What's the problem? Of course, he's ably assisted by a wonderful cast in this movie all about Ronald Reagan, including Penelope Ann Miller, who I believe plays Nancy Reagan, does it incredibly well. The sort of things where you're lost and you think, right, you're forgetting that it's a film. It's that good, I would say that. But what's interesting is how you realise how the mainstream media try to tear these things down. I was recently asked on 2 major shows over here in the United Kingdom about film reviews and would I like to discuss it. And when I said yes, I was lucky enough to meet Dennis Quaid. And they said, oh, wonderful. I sent them the clip and the pictures over and they said, oh, right, well, we're not going down that route. And I said, well, what do you mean, what route? I said, it's a review. You either like it or you don't. No, this is more of a political show. So we really want to be against all of those things. And it was fascinating, wasn't it, to think this is the level of where we're at. And then when I put something up on Facebook, had a problem with that. It was recorrected and very strange. So people do mess around in the mainstream media and on digital platforms. The reason why I highlight this is hopefully this won't be tampered on here. But I did reach out to Dennis, and apparently this is something that's gone on for some time now. They're trying to promote the movie and they're getting a negativity. One might say, of course, that it's not a political film at all. It's an entertainment film. So it's nothing to do with the forthcoming election that you have over there in the United States of America. But it seems that the opposition see this as a terrible thing to be reminded by somebody who did, in many people's eyes, a lot of good for a wonderful country. Now, I don't know about you, but I'd love to know what you think to this, because as I say, every particular thing, when I've said, no, I like that, or I was lucky enough to meet somebody who knew him, no, suddenly I'm disinvited or something like that. Very strange, isn't it? And I wanted to share this with you because I think it's important. Whether you like him or not, whether you were part of that scene, you will enjoy the memories of the 80s. It was particularly a fantastic time. And also, I just think that given recently we've had the removal of the portrait of the British Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Margaret Thatcher, from 10 Downing Street by the current incumbent, Sir Keir Starmer, it just goes to show how they play with politics to rewrite history. And that truly shouldn't happen to a man who truly was a Hollywood star and definitely made his mark and left a huge mark on the world. Now, as ever, if you can like and share and comment respectfully. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.